So welcome to the Definitely Not Parenting podcast, where we're going to talk shop, right? About priorities, principles, and perceptions that make us into who we are, stuff that we were born into and sort of now kind of run our lives in the background. And with me, as my very honored guest, is Dr. Roy Salgado. He's the owner and proprietor of Crescent City Counseling. And I happen to have known this good man for
30 years, dude. 30 years.
But that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm really glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
So we're going to do three things today. One of those things is we're going to talk about what a wisdom blueprint is, okay? And then we're going to talk about, once you understand what a wisdom blueprint is, that it'd be absolutely goofy to not at least acknowledge it or look at it or do something, and in my opinion, upgrade it however possible, right? And then three, before we leave, what I'd like to do is I'd like to come up with at least one, but maybe three different what I call wisdom upgrades, right?
Oh, all right.
Specific principles, right? Or circumstances that create a habit in the mind, maybe of thinking of things a beneficial way.
Okay.
That sort of thing. So at least one.
All right.
I've already got ones, right? So, but I'm going for three.
All right.
So hopefully by the end of this podcast, you'll have 1 to 3 simple things that you could do to alter your child's destiny. I almost hesitate to say that because it's so heavy.
Sure.
But it's all right.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll
Yes.
see what
So
we
that-
come up with.
That's got a little
All right.
asterisk next
All
to
right.
it.
All right.
It's like, hey, it'll alter
You
your
have me
child's destiny,
thinking
but chill.
deeply today.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
All right.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Because as far as in every parent that I've ever talked to, before they have the child and with, I imagine you might answer the same. As a matter of fact, let me ask you that question. What do you want for your kids? What would you?
Great question. Well, I have one son right now. He's 3 years old. What I want for him is to be a good, decent, happy person.
Okay.
I want him to not harm other people. The reason that comes to mind right now is because he's 3 years old and he's a little jerk right now.
What do you think about the title, by the way?
I think it's a great title.
Yeah?
Yeah, I like it. Blueprint for Wisdom? What is it?
Yeah, wisdom blueprint.
Wisdom Blueprint. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, the word wisdom to me looks blue. So Wisdom Blueprint actually works really well.
Experience synesthesia
I do.
with just that word?
With
Or
words,
other
letters,
things?
and numbers, days of the week, months of the year, and years. I experience spatial time synesthesia as well. It's a whole, which is a very interesting whole thing. I thought everybody experienced the world that way. Evidently, everybody does not.
Check it out.
But yeah.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
You grow up thinking that way, so you're like, well, everybody's
It's like,
like
everybody
this.
pictures
Yeah.
Monday being here and Tuesday being here and Wednesday being here, and everybody pictures, the letter A being yellow. The neuroscientists say that there's a connection, like people who experience synesthesias, because there's a connection between two different senses or two different parts of the brain. And so when those connections come together, you experience a synesthete moment. So if you have the visual part of the brain connected to the cognitive part that deals with reading or learning, if those two things
Colors.
are connected, then you get like a color associated with a letter. And then some people like taste sounds. I don't have that. I don't taste sounds. They smell color. I was like, oh.
Yeah, they're called hippies.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy stuff. It's crazy. But that's neither here nor there. We'll go to the
Actually,
topic at
I
hand.
think that's quite fascinating.
Yeah. So anyway, when I saw Wisdom Blueprint, I saw blue, and it's great.
All right,
And it's like a cobalt blue in particular.
a cobalt blue?
Yeah.
What is that? Is that like appropriate to a blueprint blue?
It's a particular color blue.
Yeah,
blue in
it's
the-
like a blueprint.
Yeah.
So check it out, man. What a cool coincidence. We'll jump right into topic one.
Topic one, all
What
right.
the hell is a wisdom blueprint?
Okay.
All right. You know what? And this is where I want to test the ideas that I have. I want you to rigorously test them, right? But the idea is that when we're born into, a set of wisdom blueprints,
All right.
and wisdom in this form, let's call it, is the information or the strategies that we use to make decisions. All right. And we all have that experience of coming across someone who said, no, you should do it this way. And we go, right? It's information.
Right.
So if you don't have access to this information
Right.
and you're encountering these challenges, like everyone does in life, right?
Right.
Fear and failure, challenge and change. If you don't have these strategies, you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
So the idea of everything that we do here and of this podcast is to take the absolute best possible wisdom, the strategies for making decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And install it like software
Mm.
from the transfer of this generation to this generation.
Ah.
It happens every time. And there's a transfer, right?
Yeah.
So the idea of everything that we do here on this podcast and at Begin With Wisdom is be aware of that process.
Sure.
Alter it if you can
Sure.
by upgrades and say, oh, all right.
Sure. Absolutely. And take what has worked in other situations and apply it to the general population, which is what I'm hearing you say. And if there are things that don't work, eliminate it. Just get rid of those things. that don't
Absolutely.
work.
Absolutely. There's good wisdom and there's bad wisdom.
Right.
Right?
Right.
We probably had that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause,
Yeah.
if you are the product of your experiences, and there are experiences that have led to things that are just not productive, not effective, not joyful.
Yeah,
then
what
why
the
would
hell?
you want to, pass that on?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that most people do. So I read this article where people who have experienced, I know this is about to go dark, but it's pertinent. It's relevant.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get your feedback on
Mm-hmm.
it. I read this article where there's a higher percentage than the general population of people who were abused physically as a child.
Mm-hmm.
They are more likely than the average person to abuse
Yeah.
their children,
Right.
which is freaking bananas, right?
Right.
You would think, right? But that's how powerful this process is
Right.
of us learning how we communicate
Right.
and how we interact with people and how the self-talk.
Yeah. Yeah. I went to this amazing workshop, and I wish I had more specific information that I'm about to give with regard to this workshop. You might want to find this article, look it up. But it talked about this parole officer who worked as a parole officer in New Jersey. He was actually a warden in New Jersey. And he noticed that there were a lot of people with the same last name in the jail. But they weren't related to each other. They just had the same last name. Prisoners with the same last name. And he was like, just interesting how, there's a disproportionate number of prisoners with the same last name. I can't remember the last name.
All right, whatever it was. And so he it just sat with him. And so he started to research and do the genealogy and started to go into the archives. No kidding.
And
I think I know where this is
and look
heading.
at these individuals, and he traced them back many generations back. And while they're not related to each other now, but they are related to two people from early
psychopaths,
colonial United States.
Insane kids.
But one was a pirate, and the father was a pirate, and the mother was a prostitute. So this pirate, who would just, steal, the booty from, the colonizers or whatever, or whomever, would just, would steal. And then, there was a prostitute that they hooked up. They had children, and these children had children. So that was just passed down. And so conversely, he said, I wonder what is the most successful family, the most successful last name.
Yeah.
So then he started to research last names, and Edwards, that stuck out in my mind. I remember that the last name Edwards has the most prominent most prominent names of people in the United States. And so Edwards, a lot of them have become professors and teachers and politicians and doctors
All right,
and
so
lawyers.
what's Edwards' story?
And so when he looked back to the Edwards,
Dickhead aristocrat?
two teachers during colonial times. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. And so you think about this. You think about two teachers who invoked whatever it is that they invoked to their children, and then their children's children, and their children's children's children. And then you fast forward, 10 generations later, the effects are successful,
really cool.
prominent people
I gotta read up
who
on
are
more of that.
professors and doctors and lawyers and community leaders. And then you have these two individuals who decide to be, for whatever reason, are a pirate and a prostitute. They come together, and then their children, 10 generations later, a good portion of them are incarcerated.
Dude, it sounds like, 8 degrees of separation. It sounds like a story, but in my experience, it sounds totally believable.
Mm-hmm.
I love that man, you know what today's podcast is really about? Here's what the 3 wisdom upgrades that we're going to do. We're going to do where you grow into a world where a new baby mind, right, grows into a world they've never known anything else other than learning is important.
All right.
That's what we do here.
Learning is important.
What do you?
All right.
One of the big questions that wisdom answers is, what do you do with time? We answered that question so long ago, and we did it during a time when we can't remember. But every single person on the planet at one point decided, this is what I do with time, right? So if the idea is there, always learning, right? Imagine being born and you never knew a world where people weren't talking about what you're learning next, right? In order to be included in this family, right? This deep human need that we have to belong to something. The only thing we understand is, and mommy and daddy, we want, this is wonderful, right? So you begin that habitual thinking of, oh yeah, that's what you do here. You learn.
Right.
We're in a constant state of learning here.
Right.
So I think I want to come up with 3, I call them wisdom blueprint upgrades.
All right.
To kind of install that sort of automatic behavior thinking.
Okay.
First one, and this is kind of at the core of a lot of what we do as well. This is the first question I want to ask you.
Okay.
Or second or third now. Let's say you could go back in time to when you were 5 years old.
All right.
And I want you to tell me what one piece of wisdom you would give yourself.
Ooh. Give myself now as a 40-something-year-old man to my 5-year-old self?
Yes.
Be brave. I think as a child, I was an anxious child. And there were a lot of things that produced anxiety in me and fear in me. And things that anxiety and fear, I really didn't overcome it until I was an adult. Like I didn't realize that you weren't supposed to walk around with an upset stomach or like feel like you had to go to the bathroom all the time.
Shit.
As a kid, I thought that was normal. I thought it was normal to think.
Just like the synesthesia, you just think it's normal.
Right. I just thought it was normal that, and then when I realized, it wasn't until I was in graduate school and I was studying, psychology and interventions. I'm like, so the way my stomach feels is a somatic symptom of anxiety. I've been experiencing anxiety all this time. I'm not supposed to feel like I'm supposed to be going to the bathroom all the time. And so I would say, be brave. Don't be anxious. Don't be fearful. Be brave is something that I would encourage my earlier self to do, which is interesting because now that I think about it, I feel like this is a therapy session. One of the things that...
therapist. I've heard the therapist is the most nuts of everybody,
dude,
right?
we are, right?
Yeah.
We are. Half of us go into the profession
to heal yourself,
to heal ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And I find myself, trying to encourage my son, who's 3, to be brave, to be strong, and to not walk that path of being fearful, because I didn't know that I was fearful. I didn't know that I was anxious.
Do you believe he's experiencing that sort of thing?
No, he's secure. He's a little too secure right now.
And you believe that if you had this information, that maybe you would have stood up to this feeling or ignored it?
I think if I had this information, I probably, I don't know, I would imagine that I would have not felt as anxious, and then I wouldn't have that somatic feeling of stomach issues,
Dude, I know those. I've felt that.
Yeah.
I think everybody has.
Yeah.
Butterflies in the stomach.
Yeah, butterflies in the stomach, and that's normal in a situation. And as soon as the situation passes, it's supposed to go away.
But you would experience it on a regular.
It was constant, and I didn't know that it wasn't supposed to. Yeah, it was constant as a little kid, always, through high school and college. But it wasn't until I went to graduate school that I'm like, now amazing. I don't experience that. Now I don't have butterflies in my stomach. I mean, I do for situational things. If I'm going to do something that's, significant that might maybe, like the day I got married, I had butterflies in my stomach, on my wedding day. Normal stuff. But it wasn't a constant, incessant, every single day thing.
What? I think your story where you didn't know until graduate school and about the synesthesia.
Mm-hmm.
So what I try to do with this work is to use that mechanism to maybe blind a mind to any other option other than the most effective strategy. So the same way, right? So do things and say things repetitively so that that kind of bubble, that kind of like, what? And you get to like your college and you're like, wait a minute, everybody doesn't learn stuff every day? What the hell?
Right. Yeah.
That sort of stuff tends to happen in like early teens, I believe.
Yeah.
Right?
I would think so. You come to a realization of things, in your early teens, because
things
all
are
you know is
different.
what you know from your home.
All you could possibly
All you know
know
is what's in your
what
house.
you're given.
And then once you start to go to other people's homes,
Yeah.
and once you start to experience how other people live, you're like, oh,
That's
people
crazy.
do things differently. Oh, wow.
I remember thinking it was weird that someone didn't put ketchup in the refrigerator. Oh, no, that people put ketchup in the refrigerator. I was like, these weirdos.
Yeah. Yeah.
You keep it in a can.
Yeah.
What the hell?
No,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's
Growing up, I put
meaningless.
ketchup on my rice. We put ketchup on our rice. Evidently,
just
most
rice
people-
by itself?
white rice. Ketchup on white rice.
Interesting.
And then I go to other people's houses, or actually,
It's kind of
conversely,
like pasta and sauce. It's the same starch and tomato.
Sure.
Yeah.
But when people would come to my house, like with my friends started to come over, I guess when whatever age,
They were
middle
like,
school,
"This is weird
I was
I'm
like,
doing."
you put ketchup on your rice? What, you don't?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just got
Yeah.
used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You know, and this is one of the other things I wanted to talk about real
Mm-hmm.
quick is the origin of this work. When I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
there was a fella who, and I thought about this. I think should I say his name? Is that rude to someone to say his name?
It depends on the context, I guess.
Yeah,
I
I'd
don't
love to tell you. No, it's definitely a good thing.
Oh, okay.
It's
Say his
definitely a
name.
good thing. But there was this fellow student
Mm-hmm.
who was he was like a rock star, and it seemed to me that I had the same sort of potential or talent, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
as this fella. Except this dude was freaking like on 8 cups of coffee. He got shit done, right? So I was at that time. Even then, I was like, "Oh, how's he doing?" I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I started questioning just about everyone that I met for years and years and years. And there was a pattern that developed. And this was the pattern. For people who seemed to be achieving
Mm-hmm.
things that I, for whatever reason, perceived myself not achieving. Right?
Sure.
Not fulfilling your potential is
Sure.
basically. They generally had one kind of common theme. And it was something like this. It was, well, my dad always told me X, Y, and Z. Or, and I said that like an old man. I don't know why, because it's all young people. But some old people.
Right.
And other people would say, well, my grandma always said, X, Y, and Z. And for the people who seemed to be not fulfilling their potential, they didn't have something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They seemed to have a guiding principle that was repeated
Mm-hmm.
by some sort of emotionally relevant.
Right.
So I found this pattern, and this is the other pattern that I found. I found that when I would question people who did have the habits that I wanted, they would say, I was like, so where do you get this from?
Mm-hmm.
And almost all of them, right, they would do something to the effect of they look up, well, and again, this is old man. I don't know why it's so bad. But they look up and go, I don't really know. I guess it was just always there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that pointed me in the direction that there was something in that period of time, in the magic
Mhm.
years, let's say between the ages of 3 and 7, when you kind of come into an awareness of
Mhm.
yourself. And it seems like something that happens over and over during that time seems to just
Mhm.
bake in,
Mm-hmm.
some kind of way.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that idea?
I think that's true. I think that you are motivated consciously and subconsciously by what you're shown, what's modeled to you. And so whatever's shown to you, whatever's modeled to you, you kind of just mimic that and move forward.
Is it fair to say that when it's shown repeatedly, like it's when you
Yes,
see things
yeah,
over
and that's
over
the key.
and over?
And that's the key.
The key is repetition.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting because as I heard you speak, my experience is kind of like a mixed experience. My grandparents, my maternal grandparents, were both accountants. So they were educated people. And my grandmother was an educated woman, which is not typical for women of her generation to have a degree, and from Honduras. My family's from Honduras. So,
Wow.
so it's not typical.
No,
But she
no,
and my
that's
grandfather,
extraordinary.
yeah,
by
both she-
definition.
Yeah. So both she and my grandfather were formally educated people, and so their 6 children were raised in a very comfortable upper middle class type of situation in Honduras as well as here in New Orleans of a middle class situation. But when my dad came from a pretty comfortable, affluent family in Honduras as well. But then here together, when they met here in New Orleans, they lived a working class lifestyle, and they got divorced. And so when my parents got divorced, I was young, and so we struggled financially. My mom was a single mom, and so it was interesting to grow up with grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins who lived a certain social class, and we were the poor ones of the family. My mom, but not because we didn't belong to this certain social class in the family, but because of divorce. Because of divorce, it kind of just, you have less money. Divorce is very expensive.
I've heard it's brutal.
So then
with
my
kids,
mom
divorce with kids.
with kids,
is brutal.
right? So my mom became the single mom, raising 3 kids, putting 3 kids through Catholic school in New Orleans. Because in New Orleans, especially back then, there were no real options other than to send your kids to Catholic school. So we were broke all the time, and I went to school with kids who had a middle class lifestyle, but yet we were among the poorer ones.
Are you suggesting that because you saw this every day, it drove you to?
It motivated me.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, okay, so I saw my cousins have more than I saw my classmates have more
Those sons
as
of
well.
bitches.
Yeah. And so that motivated me. I'm like, okay, so what's going on here? And I say, all these people, my grandparents had what they had because they were formally educated. My cousins have what they have because my mom was formally educated too, but, kind of getting divorced kind of like, squelches that. My mom was a nurse.
Punch, yeah.
Yeah, it's a gut punch. And, my mom's retired. But I just saw this. And so it motivated me. It's like, okay, one, I have to go to school so I can get educated.
Where'd you get that idea?
Just by seeing it in the people who were comfortable.
Yeah, okay.
It's just,
You just saw, hey, these people are educated.
These people
this
are
is how you
educated.
get to where they are.
They have money or,
Yeah.
enough to be able to meet your needs.
Yeah.
So this is what I got to do. I got to study. Got to just
Was
keep
that
doing
ever
that.
verbalized? Like,
Yeah,
did your
yes
mom,
and no.
Did your mom say that?
Yeah, my mom would say that. She would say, you got to go to school, you got to do your homework, you got to study, so one day you'll be able to get a good job that pays well, that you take care of yourself. And that's just something that we learned, that we observed. And I was actually extra motivated to say, well, I don't want to be broke always.
Yeah.
I want to, have more, not to have it just be about, material things. But that was a motivating factor too.
Has Eric ever shared this with you? It's a common friend of ours is Eric. Right?
He's shared many things, but I don't know what you're about to.
Well, here we
say.
go. So Eric told me the story about how his parents, probably not by design, I don't think they actually consciously said, we're going to speak in assumptive language about going to college. But Eric described it to me this way. And by the way, he has 4 siblings. So of 5 children, 5 have advanced degrees, at least a bachelor's, but I think advanced degrees. 5 out of 5. And he said, yeah, man, when I was growing up, he was like, Mom and Dad never talk about if we were going to college. It wasn't even like a question.
Right.
It was just when college was spoken of, it was assumed. And questions that would come up would be like, where are you going to college? Or, right? So it's not, hey, are you gonna? It's, where are you going?
Right.
Where are you going?
Yeah.
Are you going there?
Yeah.
What are you, an idiot? No.
Yeah.
You need to go here, right? That's,
yeah.
So he said that he attributes that assumptive language, that idea that just it's assumed.
Yeah. There was no doubt that we would go to college. It was just understood and known from an early age that we would go to college. From like, I don't know, 3rd grade on. I just knew it.
Interesting. All right. Now, I come from a place where that wasn't necessarily what was going to happen.
Okay.
So, I can see both. As far as you can see into another person's mind, I kind of look at it and I'm like, oh, I see. When something is just understood and, hey, this is how it's going to go, your mind just doesn't question it.
Yeah.
It starts to build toward that inevitability.
Right.
It's not really inevitable, right? But it feels that way because you don't know anything else.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I think I'm belaboring this freaking point.
No, it's absolutely true. Just having heard my grandparents' experience of going to school, and then my great aunts and uncles, they had gone to school, my mom, and then other aunts and uncles, and just people just going to school, going to college.
Yeah.
It's just a thing you did.
It's just what you do.
Just what you do.
That's the best way that I could put what we do
Yeah,
here.
it's just what you do.
Make it something. This is just what we do.
Yeah.
Wait, you're not? You don't want to do? What are you, an idiot? What are
Yeah,
you,
he was
goofball? This is what we do.
Yeah.
This is
You go to college.
yeah. You just that's what's done here.
Right. But, which is very interesting because, now, here we are in 2019, and I don't have that mindset of you go to college.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so important.
Now,
I totally agree with that. I'm glad you brought that up. So
I,
we don't
I
seem
went to
think-
college. I have a
Yeah.
bachelor's degree. I have a master's
Different
degree.
world.
And I have a doctorate.
Different world.
Okay, so I was told go to college, but
Yeah.
not only go to college, but go and get an advanced degree. But not only go in and get an advanced degree, get yet another advanced degree.
Really? Yeah.
That's just so
Yeah.
I did. But I have my son, and if he wants to go and get advanced degrees, sure.
Well, you're nailing us very specific.
But if he doesn't want to do that,
Yeah.
that's fine too. My thing is I want him to be a good person,
you want to be a good person,
a decent person, and a happy
decent
person.
and happy.
I don't want him to screw people over. I don't want people to screw him over. I want him to be able to navigate through life and do good and be good and be happy.
Be happy.
And what can that look like? He could be a poet. He can be a welder. He can be a teacher, a doctor, president of the United States, a farmer, whatever he wants to be. You don't have to go to a 4-year university to be a good, decent, productive, happy member of society.
Totally, man. Yeah. I do like the idea of when you leave home and go spend 4 years somewhere else. It opens your mind to different ideas and different ways of living. Kind of like we were talking about before, but man, I in no way think that is the absolute answer like it was like 40 years ago.
Yeah, it's one
It's
one alternative. It's one way of doing things.
Yeah.
It's not the only way of doing things. And I think,
Yeah.
Growing up, I was told that's what you do.
That's just what you
it's
do.
just what you do. And I was never given a message of, oh, you could go and, backpack through Europe for, 5 years or whatever. That was never an option.
Yeah.
Or, join the Peace Corps and go dig a well in Uganda. That's not anything that was ever an option. You go to college. But I'm of a mindset that, you can do these things, that are different from that route. There are so many different possibilities for people.
Now there's so much information. Anyone at any time has access to just
Right.
any information that they want.
We know more now. And I think we have at least 2 or 3 generations. We have the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, and the millennials now who have been taught go to college, go to college, go to college. It's just what you do. And
Man,
then we
it's
see,
outdated,
is it really what you do?
yeah.
There are other options, other possibilities.
It's good business.
It's very good business.
Very good business.
Look, and as a professor at a university, I see that it is a good business.
Yeah.
And a big part, it is a business. A big part of it is having those seats filled and marketing to getting, seats filled, just like any other industry.
Yeah.
We need to have those seats filled. The people who make movies, people who sell books, people who, whatever product or goods or service, it's about.
And all that stuff feeds families.
All of that
All
stuff
is
feeds
for
families,
that
most
are good,
certainly.
decent people.
Absolutely.
Here's what I'd like to do now.
All right.
I'm going to read a quote.
All right.
This is from Julian Edelman. Julian Edelman is a do you know who that guy is? He's
No,
a
actually.
receiver for the New England Patriots. He's,
All right.
He was Super Bowl MVP.
All right.
He's
yeah.
a dude that's known for his toughness and his durability.
All right.
I think those two concepts are different enough.
All right.
Right. So the idea is, and now I want to talk about the 3 wisdom blueprint upgrades that anyone can do. Let's make them as simple as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I want at least one to be a principle, right? Just a repetitive belief,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'd like one to be, and the other I would like to, anything else that you have to add, let's go to. But I want to read this
right.
quote from Julian Edelman.
All right.
By the way, he's also known as sort of an undersized guy. He was drafted in the 7th round, which is
Wow.
the last possible round, right?
Really? Wow.
Like, yeah, like talent isn't necessary. It can come from anywhere, right?
Sure.
But it's not generally known. So that's his background.
Okay.
So he's sort of known as a scrapper,
Okay.
chip on his shoulder, that kind of dude,
Mm-hmm.
which means toughness.
Yeah.
All right. So this is his
Grit.
quote.
His grit.
He has grit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Resilience. I
Yeah.
think that's the word
Yeah.
that I think is best.
Right.
Resilience. If you're done, this is a quote, if you're done growing, you're done playing, Edelman said at his locker on Friday. My dad always said, when you're green, you grow. When you're ripe, you rot. And that's what you do here. You try to continually go out and try to get better, improve whatever you can improve, and that's what I'll do until the day I'm done. So I think what the principle should be, or it can be, right? If someone chooses, right? And this is, by the way, this is the principle that you want to just speak of with regularity, right? Or repetition, like you said. It's all about repetition, right? That's how you learn.
Yes.
Especially in those magic years.
Right.
When they don't even remember. They'll be like, I don't remember.
Right.
Yeah, Dad just always.
Right.
If you're done learning, if you're done learning, you're done living. Or, and it might take a little dark side. By the way, this is designed to play on every human being's biggest fear is death.
Right.
And what will we do, man? We will do almost anything to avoid the greatest pain in our lives, right? So the idea is to use that fulcrum, that big, nasty fulcrum, and say, and associate learning with not dying. At the most basic, fundamental decision-making level.
Yeah.
So that when you come out, 20 years old, you don't say, oh, it's my fear of dying that makes me learn.
Right.
It's just like, man, I just learn. I wake up.
Right.
And that's all I want to do. Right?
Yeah.
And learning benefits absolutely anything you want to put your mind to, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It might be a little dark, but I think
it's
there's two
big,
ways.
It's heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But something that comes to mind is just in my family, this whole notion of death. There are members of my family that have died, but it's like they haven't died. It's like they're always there just because of their lessons. Their lessons have lived on, with what they've taught us. I think of my grandmother's side of the family, my great-grandfather, Santiago, and he would always say to my great-grandmother, Prisca, he would always say, just like they would sit at their table. This is what I've been told. This is what it's been passed down to us, that they had 5 natural-born children, and then they adopted 5 other children. My grandmother's, my great-grandmother's sister died. This was like in the early 1900s. Yeah. She died, and so their father could not handle 5 kids, so they just took him in. So there were 10 kids growing up together. And so my grandmother was one of 5, but really was one of 10 growing up.
Yeah.
So they sat at this table, had their, dinner or whatever. And so my great-grandfather would just look at this table, look at his wife and just say, isn't it true that we're happy? And then she would respond, yes, we're happy. They were a happy family, and they grew up a happy family. And then
did you say he would say that every night over dinner?
Regularly, not every night, but regularly. He would just revel in his greatest gift of his family. And just like, isn't it true that we're happy? And then she goes, yes,
man,
we're happy.
I love that.
Isn't that beautiful? It is so beautiful, and just something that was passed down to my grandmother, and that was transmitted to my mother, and that was transmitted to me, and it's being transmitted to Remy. Man. So here we have 5 generations. I never met him. He died long before I was ever born. I never knew him, yet his words have been passed down. Now, he has died. He has died. He died a long time ago. But he hasn't died. His
spirit lives on.
His spirit lives on. His words. And so this has become like our family mantra, or our family, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for?
Motto?
Motto. Our family motto. Yeah. That's the word. We are happy is our family motto. Man, and so as a family, with the cousins, aunts, uncles, whatever, we repeat his declaration of, you know what? We're happy. We're happy. We are a happy family. I'm very fortunate to come from a happy family. And it didn't just happen. This happened 100 years ago with my great-grandfather and my great-grandmother with their 10 children. They didn't make any distinctions between their 5 children and the 5 nieces and nephews that they raised as their own. They're all their 10 children. And then of those people, now there's a good 800 of us all over the world. Some of us are in the United States. Some live in England and Germany and Israel and Italy and Mexico and Honduras and Like we've spread out all over the place, and we keep in touch, and we're happy, and we love one another, and we just transmit this, and so that happiness, is something that just keeps going. So to the point of staying green and not getting ripe, the concept of happiness has been passed down through our family that way. And
just
it
an
continues.
awareness of it, a reminder of it.
An awareness, a reminder of it, and just to pursue that, and to pass it on and do things that create the conditions for you and those at your table to be happy, So I don't have this large table like my great-grandfather did with his wife and his 10 children. We have a table that seats 4, my wife and my son. There's 3 of us. So it's smaller, but to try to transmit happiness, there.
So you say that too? You say that?
I say that. So I say that all the time. I actually have
what a great legacy.
I have a blog. That I refer to as the We Are Happy Project. That's the title. The We Are Happy. Actually, it's in Spanish. The Somos Felices Project. And because that's how they would say it. ¿Verdad, Prisca, que somos felices? Sí, Santiago, somos felices. And so somos felices. And so that's a part of I took the family motto.
Somos felices.
Somos felices.
We are happy.
We are happy. And so just passing that on and just, learning that that's an important thing, and to be happy doesn't mean to be libertine and do whatever the heck you want and whatever. People think that they can find happiness in all sorts of things: drugs, alcohol, sex, food, gambling, whatever. No, but happiness really is just being loved and loving others.
Sure
that makes you happy.
You sure it's not a cheeseburger?
I love a good cheeseburger. But he didn't die.
Had what a wonderful legacy that this was, right?
Right.
So, so anyone who's listening or watching, anyone at any point, if they have a kid, right? If they're having a baby, let's say,
right,
they can install this and start doing that and radically alter the course of that growing mind's thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because those 10 children, my grandmother being one of those 10 children, they heard that regularly. We're happy. And as a result, that installation of being happy, they were happy, and they married happy people. They matched up with happy people, and that was passed on. And I don't know what happened with my parents. That's a whole other story. But but as a general rule,
you can't bat 1,000.
Right. As a general rule, everybody has been happy.
That's pretty cool, man. I really like that idea. All right, so that's 2 right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
1, always learning, but if you can associate learning and happiness, or really, you can't be your best self if you're not kind of in an awareness of how good you got it, right? Or just say happy or grateful, or what's the line?
Isn't it true that we are happy?
Isn't it true that we are happy?
To which you would respond, yes, we are happy.
Because happiness can be found at any time.
So
he's deciding, hey, this is the truth.
We're happy. We're together and we have food.
Yeah, that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so cool. So we've got, all right, so try to think of now. So we've got 2 principles that could be repeated, right? Let's think of something that's going to install or let's think of something we can install that is going to make that mind just really crave to learn. What do I do here? I want to learn. I want to be a part of this. How do I be a part of this family? How do I find acceptance and love, right? Which is what we all want, right? So how can we get that into where they wake up every day automatically, just like some people, I've met them. How do you get that? What's something that you could do? Here's the idea that I had. I want to get your feedback on it. We have that innate need to belong to something greater than ourselves, right? And we all know that powerful pull that our parents' opinion have of us, or has opinions have, right? Right. It's a real pull. Disappointing them. For most people, some people don't give a damn. Some people don't give a shit about their parents. Fine.
Right.
Some people's parents don't deserve to be given a shit about, right?
Yeah.
Let's admit that. At the same time, there's still a pull. We want to please them. We don't want to disappoint them, right? So use that somehow, that need to be a part of it, as just saying, hey, you want to be a part of this family? You got to be learning. So here's what I'm guessing. Here's what I propose. Make it part of everyday conversation. What have you learned today? Maybe at the dinner table, driving to the grocery store, right? At some point, but make it to where it happens.
Yeah.
On a regular basis.
Yeah.
So that mind understands, or that mind thinks. And imagine the pain that mind would have.
Yeah.
If mom or dad came to them and said, hey, what did you learn today? And then you got to go, because I've felt that, and I've talked to many people who have felt that, they don't have anything, right?
Right.
So that's a pull. The next day, they're going to be like, I'm going to learn.
Yeah.
What am I going to learn today?
Yeah, there's always something to learn every single
It's-
day,
man.
big and small.
Absolutely. And if
Yeah.
you're a constant state of learning.
And if you're a young child, a young child under the age of 6, everything is potentially a
Everything
new
is
first.
new.
Everything is
Absolutely,
new. It's a
everything
new
is-
first.
just
And
life
it's-
is a learning.
And just building upon that.
Right.
What comes to mind right now is I have never had a green thumb. I have never planted anything really, but I have recently wanted to beautify my backyard and just plant rose bushes and have like a garden and whatever. Something I had never done before, peppers and tomatoes, whatever. So anyways, we started small. So Amanda and I, we planted a rose bush, and we bought some periwinkles, and we planted around our oak tree. And they're small little plants, so we've gone and bought dozens of them. And every weekend we're buying more so we can fill this corner of this space.
Where are you doing it?
Bought them at Perino's, and we're doing it in my backyard around the oak tree.
I know.
Yeah.
But, around the oak tree.
Around
Okay,
the
I'm
oak
trying
tree.
to get an image of it.
Yeah, around the oak tree and around this seating area. It's really nice. And so
That's cool.
So yeah, and so Remy is helping, So I'm there and I'm digging with the shovel and whatever, and he's there and he's like, "Oh, Daddy," and then you can do this, and then and I do that. And so, and like, "Oh, look at what we did." And then later on in the day, it's like, "Daddy, you know what?" And I'm like, "What?" When you plant something, you have to dig a hole in the ground with a shovel in order for you to put the plant in the ground, and then you have to cover it up. Like, you're right, buddy. Yeah, that's how it works. Because if we just put the plant on top, it wouldn't work.
That's cool.
You're right. Just putting the plant on top of the ground, it's not going to work. He's like, "What's going to happen if you just put it on top?" And like, "I think it'll eventually just die." And he goes, "But because we use a shovel and we dig, we put it in there and we put the dirt on top, then it's growing because I see it, Daddy."
He's all
growing.
excited. This
And he's all
magnificent
excited.
lesson.
This amazing
plants
thing
need to be in the
that
ground.
Plants need to be in the ground in order for them to grow.
Yeah.
And it's just like this new thing. And so just that experiential, you create conditions. Here we are creating a moment where we're doing something together for our home. And it's just a task. It's a chore. It's a task. It's nice. It's not like mopping or sweeping or whatever. I think for me it's more enjoyable to plant than to sweep or mop. I don't like that kind of stuff, but we do it anyway. But he's learning, and when we mop and sweep, that's another thing too. When we mop and sweep, he has this little play broom and play for his size and play mop. If I'm sweeping, he's sweeping alongside me, and he's like, "Daddy, look, I'm doing it too. I got more dirt than you've got." I'm like, let's see who has more dirt. Creating these conditions, creating these opportunities, these moments through play, through experience that teach life lessons, starting with the small, everyday, mundane.
All right. So what are you suggesting that should be one? Like, hey, sweep every day, because I like you would sweep on a regular basis and make it like a thing.
Yeah.
Make it a thing that, hey, we're sweeping today or something along those lines.
Right, make it a thing. And
What
I
could it be other than sweeping? Maybe sweeping's not very
Well,
cool.
I don't have to tell him. I mean, I don't sweep every day. I sweep every, once a week or whatever.
Of course.
But
Yeah.
when I do sweep, he just sees that I do it. And at this age, they model everything you do. So then he sees me, oh, we have to sweep. Okay. He goes and gets his little broom and he starts sweeping alongside with me. Or I go outside. I don't say, "Hey, let's go plant." I go, he goes, "Daddy, can I help?" And that's a big thing when they're little. They want to help when they're little. When they're like 14, they don't. But when they're like 3, they do want to help. And so, taking those opportunities and not pushing them away. It's like, "Daddy, can I help?" Some parents might say, no, you're in the way. Don't ever do that to a child. Don't ever do that to a child.
I laugh. It's awful, but it seems so bizarre that someone would do something like that.
And they do. Or, when a kid makes a bed, in my therapy practice, I hear parents who do things for their kids because their kids don't do it well enough, like making a bed.
Oh man,
when I tell them to make it, they make it wrong. So I just have given up and I just do it. Well, they're never going to learn to do that.
Yeah.
If they don't know how to make their bed, they're not going to learn how to do other things.
That's episode 2, my friend. Work ethic.
Yes,
it really came down to, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Always learning or work ethic? It's a really close one too. But always learning, you could learn a work ethic. So that's the most
And I think a
fundamental.
work ethic develops through learning. Through learning how to sweep, through learning how to make a bed, through learning how to plant a plant, through learning how to just do things,
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. I like that.
then a work ethic just becomes a byproduct of learning.
Yeah. I like that. Can you hear that? What's next? You know, the good part
Wisdom
about it-
blueprint is what you started off with.
Oh man! All right.
And so what's
Yeah.
next? In terms of wisdom blueprint, the philosophy that I have found myself really working towards personally, and then transmitting it professionally in my therapy sessions with patients is, do good, be good for others. Just for your wife, for your husband, for your children, for your neighbor, for your fellow human being. And that ultimately will transmit happiness. Because I think my great grandfather was happy because he was a good, decent human being. He took in his wife's 5 nieces and nephews and raised them
That's
as his
crazy.
own.
Yeah.
And so having done that very selfless act, I think he created a condition that it just brought happiness to him. When you do things for others, you feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
You feel happy. When you're a selfish bastard, then you have like this,
So doing things for other people makes you feel good.
doing
So
good
it's
for other people.
selfish to do them.
It's a very existential question about
Yeah.
is
With the
altruism
line.
truly altruism?
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah.
I guess it all depends upon
Yeah. Yeah.
true
That's too
intention.
much meta thinking for me.
Yeah,
Evan.
that's way too much.
Yeah. But in his instance, here he selflessly gave to these 5 orphan children,
That is pretty awesome.
and
It
as
is.
a result, his life just was blessed beyond belief with this happiness and 10
And love.
great kids and love.
Yeah.
And then that was transmitted to the next generation, the next generation, the next generation. Now there's a good close to 1,000 of us, and we're all the beneficiaries and heirs of that selfless act.
You know what? I think that's one of my favorite things about how information has just become proliferated.
Mhm.
Like, information's everywhere. We know so much about so many things. So
Yeah.
much more than even 10 years ago, but probably 20 years ago. It's
Yeah.
a world of difference. Is that love is it? Although it sounds cheesy, and we were kind of raised like the words we didn't really say "I
Mhm.
love you" and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
But it was raised to be cheesy, and now we're saying that no, man, that is
Yeah.
the way.
absolutely.
Is the way to go.
And it's transcendent. It really is. When you create conditions to express and show your love for other, then you get it back, and then
I don't know if you get it back necessarily. I don't know
That's
that
a good
one
point.
follows the other, but I get
good
what
point.
you're saying.
It's a good point.
I get what you're saying. I interrupted you. What a prick
No,
host. What an asshole.
no. But you give love. You create conditions to give love to your children, if nothing else, to your children. The idea is that they have benefited from that, and maybe they can pass it on to someone else. Even if you don't get it back. But typically, those that are shown love
Pay it forward.
tend to show love.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And those that are shown abuse and trauma and rejection project that forward as
they're
well.
screwed. All right, so let's try it. We got a little bit of time left.
Mhm.
Let's. I want to do a quick review.
Okay.
Right. I wanted to talk about. Let's review the answer, the wisdom that you would have told yourself when you were
Mhm.
5, and that is, be brave.
Be brave.
Let's talk about the 2 principles, or the 2 repetitive principles,
Mm-hmm.
right? That it could be upgraded to
Mhm.
any wisdom blueprint can get this upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
It's a simple upgrade. You just install it.
Mm-hmm.
You just do it on a regular basis.
Mhm.
You just think this is what we talk about,
Mhm.
right? What is a mind? Mind has to answer a question: what the hell is important in this
Mhm.
world? And what is it going to find?
Mhm.
Whatever is talked about the most, whatever people put their energy toward, right? So that's why repetitive statements are really good, especially when you're,
Yeah.
in those magic years, right? When
Yeah.
you come out, you're like, I don't remember them. Well, I guess that's what I.
Yeah.
Anyway, so one of the statements is, if you're done learning, you're done living.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you want to go a little darker, and if you're done learning, If you're not learning, you're dying.
If you're not learning, you're dying.
If you're not learning, you're dying. And that's going to be my official thumbs up one right there.
Yeah, so if you're not learning, you're dying. And so, when I think about planting a plant with Remy or sweeping a floor with Remy, he's learning. And then as he gets older, we build upon that, changing a tire, and who knows what else we could possibly learn, or I could teach him, and to create the conditions where he is going to be a life learner.
It's literally impossible to hit the ceiling. There's so much to learn.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
literally impossible. It's
but in order,
right?
But in order for the individual, for another individual to start to install that desire to learn,
all right,
those that are responsible for him initially, i.e. his caregivers, his
right,
parents,
right,
have to install that and create conditions early on for that to be a habit. In order to create a habit of life learning, it has to be installed the sooner the better. We can always modify our behaviors at any point in life. I wouldn't be a therapist if I didn't think that people can modify their behaviors.
That's the basis of your
right. So I know it
industry.
To be true, and I know that it can.
It can,
and
absolutely.
it does happen.
Yeah.
It just, the benefits are exponential the sooner it starts. It's like compounded interest in the stock market. It's just
the sooner you get in,
the sooner you get in,
the better your chances.
So if you start to teach a child, you create the conditions for a child that every day is a day, an opportunity to learn. To learn how to plant a plant, to sweep a floor, to change a tire eventually, to eat healthy, to make good choices. Are you going to pick the water over the soda? Are you going to do this over that? Life learning, the benefits are exponential. You're healthier, you're wiser, you're kinder.
More likely to have a large social circle.
Certainly.
Right.
All of these benefits. Yeah. And so the sooner you start with those things, the better for the individual.
All right. So we've got be brave. We've got if you're wait. If you're not learning, you're dying.
If you're not learning, you're dying.
Are we on a consensus of that one? That's better than if you're not learning, then you're not living.
Yeah, if you're not learning, you're dying. I have a colleague. Right. May he rest in peace. He passed away a couple of years ago at the age of 88, I believe. Professor at the University of Holy Cross, Dr. Hay, and he always talked about being a life learner, and being an agent for change in others' lives, and being one who promotes life learning. And he says, until the day he died, he was always learning. And while he was a professor and taught students, he said he learned from his students, just as much.
Yeah, if you're in a constant state of learning, it's a kick-ass place to be.
Constant state of learning.
It's a kick-ass
Absolutely.
place to be. Yeah. You're always curious. You're always growing. You always have that sense of growth.
And
right?
you always
who doesn't want to grow?
And you always learn from every new person that you encounter. Everyone has their own unique experience.
Yeah.
And,
totally.
and you learn. I learn from my patients. I learn from my students. I learn from my friends, from my family members, all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Big and small.
I've had that experience too. Where you just when I'm able to stop myself and listen to people, I'm not always able to do that, but when I am, it turns out a lot more often than not, I find something like, oh yeah, this person seemed like a moron, but they got something.
Yeah,
and
certainly
I was wrong, obviously, right, to judge these people that way.
Certainly, no, absolutely.
All right, so another recap. I don't know how many times I'm going to recap. So be brave. If you're not learning, you're dying. Right? We're in consensus.
Yes.
I love that. If you're not learning, you're dying. And aren't we a happy family? The question. Yeah? Those are the three.
Yes.
All right, so that's your wisdom blueprint upgrades right there. Easily installable, little plug-in, little update.
Yeah.
You download that from one generation to the next.
Yeah.
You give that mind a better opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
They still might be,
because if you are happy, if you're truly, say, isn't it true that you're happy, that we're happy? You take a moment to assess that and accentuate the good things in life. Just accentuate the good things in life. What are the good things? We're together. We're fed. Whatever else. And if you could have $1 million or whatever. But to accentuate the good things in life, you can build upon that. You can always build upon the good things. It's hard to build upon negative things. That. Yeah. You don't want a foundation to be. With
people
things.
People do.
Yeah.
And because they're unaware, they don't look at the blueprint and say, what kind of.
So the blueprint, is to have a foundation of, we're happy. Okay. We have these basic things. We're together. We're fed. We can build upon that.
I like it, man.
And then create the conditions for learning and growth and continuing living and not dying. You know, my great grandfather, you know, I never met him, but I feel like I have a relationship with him. This is an odd thing that I feel like I have a relationship with him because I know so much about him. It's like I met him, but I know I never met him. He died long before I was ever born, but he's an integral part of our family today.
Yeah.
You know, that you don't die. We still learn from him. You know, it reminds me of the movie Coco. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Coco. It's
With
just,
the powder dude?
no,
No,
little Mexican
I guess
boy.
that's Powder.
Oh, Powder. No. It's a new animated film, like 2 or 3 years old or whatever.
Yeah.
And it talks about the second death and how people really don't die. You know, and how in the Day of the Dead, the way the Mexican population celebrates the Day of the Dead.
Oh, wait a minute. I've seen it. It's excellent.
Excellent movie.
Yeah.
You know, and how the second death is when you're no longer remembered.
Yes, when everybody dies off that
remembers
no
you.
longer remembers you.
Right. And so
you're no longer remembered by anyone living.
So my great-grandfather Santiago, he's still alive because his memory lives on. He still exists existentially in the universe.
Yeah.
Because
with the bones and stuff.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure he's dust, ash.
It'd be cool if there was a bone,
right?
Bone, you just turn into these skeletons out.
Right.
Cool.
But he didn't die. He didn't cease to exist because he learned something significant in his life that he was able to pass on.
I like that idea. I like that idea. It's a legacy. How'd you like to be able to do that for your family and every generation that comes after yours by installing this, you know,
and they build upon what you've learned. You know,
oh yeah.
You learn, you pass that on, you instill more. They build upon that. They build upon that, and it's just you become.
You know what? I get the feeling that we are solving all of life's greatest mysteries, and the next couple podcasts is what I want to. Is what I want to attempt. Right, attempt to do the same pattern that we did today. We talk about a lot of stories, and then come down with 3 wisdom blueprints for the following: developing a work ethic. Right, because for whatever reason, I'm not smart enough to know why culture tells us, our outside culture tells us, and why kids are developing poor work ethics. Right. There's a whole slew of reasons. I don't give a damn. What I want to do is change it from this generation on. So we're going to do work ethic. Here's another one I want to do: accepting responsibility to the point where it doesn't. You're less likely to delude yourself into thinking that you're right. So that's coming up. I want to thank you.
I look forward to it.
Thank you very much, Roy.